What's going on, YouTube? Welcome back to another Heart Over Height episode. Today, we're going to be doing the power forward ranking, giving us the top 10 players of this last season. So if you do enjoy this kind of content, do me a huge favor, smash the like button, subscribe to the YouTube channel, comment down below on whether you agree or disagree. I've been pumping out these videos with the point guard, shooting guard, and small forward, and you guys have been liking it, commenting down below. We've been having discussions, so let's continue that with the power forwards here. So without further ado, let's get right on into this. So basically, it's the same way as all the other videos. We're going to start at number 10, and we're going to work our way up to 1. So at number 10, I do have a guy, young player that's still up and coming, of course, hasn't necessarily lived up to the hype that we expected, gave him sort of a Kevin Garnett, Tim Duncan-esque evaluation, but that guy is Evan Mobley. Now, Evan Mobley is one of the two top defensive anchors for the Cleveland Cavaliers. That being Jared Allen and Evan Mobley have sort of a twin tower look like the Houston Rockets did back in the day. So he is still developing that offensive game. It's not quite what we thought it was. He is averaging 15, 9, and 3, and through 3 seasons, it has been pretty similar across the board with those numbers. I'd, of course, like to see him take another step with the offensive game, but I do understand having other guys around him like Donovan Mitchell, who takes a lot of shots, Darius Garland, who takes a lot of shots, Caris LeVert, who takes a lot of shots. It's going to be tough to get his kind of thing. So what he is focused on is on that defensive end, and let me tell you, he can switch onto a lot of pick and roll switches and everything like that. He's kind of a dynamic defender that is a pretty solid player in this league. But yeah, as far as that offensive game just hasn't really fully developed yet to what we believe it could, i.e. Tim Duncan or Kevin Garnett-esque. Now, of course, that's a huge ceiling. We're talking about 2 Hall of Famers, 2 that are the best at their position kind of thing. So we might have just stretched it a little too high for his exact evaluation. But still, really solid player in today's league. Next up at number 9. Now, this is the kind of player that could literally be on everyone's list a lot higher or could be a lot lower just because of his role and everything like that, and that is Julius Randle. Now, Julius Randle has kind of been known as a little bit of a stat patter. Somebody that is going to go and get his first, and he's not necessarily shown that he's more of a let me adapt my game so we can go win games. So this season specifically is going to be extremely interesting because he's going to need to adapt his game because there's going to be a lot of mouths to feed on this roster with Brunson, Mikal Bridges, DiVincenzo, OG, Randall, Mitchell Robinson. You've got a lot of guys on this roster that are going to be not demanding the ball, but looking to get some shots up. And Randall, if he doesn't necessarily fit that culture that they've got starting to build over there, he might be the guy out. But yeah, averaging 24, 9, and 5, you have to respect his game, of course, a lot. I just want to see if he's going to be able to adapt his game to fit the Knicks' current roster construction that they have built over there with the Villanova boys. That's basically that's why I have him at the 9 spot. I'm not sure if he's able to do that or if he wants to do that. Another guy at number 8. Now this guy, he again could be a little bit higher on some people's list, but on my list he's a little low. That is Zion. We've only seen, like this year he played 70 games and he only had one other quote-unquote healthy season, and that's where he played 61. Zion hasn't lived up to the expectation of being that number 1 overall pick. Yes, he puts up decent numbers, 22, 5, and 5, but they're not. The Pelicans aren't super productive in the sense that they're 8th seed constantly, right around that 5 through 10 area. They haven't broken that barrier where they're going up and above. And you think with your number 1 overall pick being Zion, he would have been that guy. We expected this guy to be a generational type talent. I even thought that he would be this, like Charles Barkley, Larry Johnson-esque guy. And when he's fully healthy, you see flashes of his game being like those guys, the Shawn Kemp, the Charles Barkley that could dominate in today's league. i.e. like Giannis, for example, is a guy that has used his athleticism to completely take the league by storm. And Zion, we were expecting that too. But we consistently see like getting bounced in the first round time and time and time. And they're kind of one of those rosters that's just stuck in the middle. Now, they should be better by acquiring DeJounte Murray. But I got to say, I need to see a little bit more out of Zion, especially since you're looking to pick between Brandon Ingram and Zion. And consensus right now is they're picking Zion over Brandon Ingram. But, you know, if he has another, like, I don't want to call this a mediocre season, but like a below expectation season that we're expecting, we got to start looking on if he was a bust as the number 1 overall pick, especially with other guys that were in that draft class being like John Morant, for example, was the very next pick. But still, very solid player overall. I'm not labeling him a bust by any means. I'm just saying I think that he needs to take a little bit of accountability and needs to step up and be that guy this next season. You know, dark horse MVP caliber season is what I'm looking at for Zion. Next up is the kind of guy that does it all on that defensive end. He is the kind of guy that is going to be out there and gets in a little bit of foul trouble sometimes, but definitely holds down the paint, and that is Jaren Jackson Jr. Now, this year, he might end up transitioning and being the center for them, just as they right now have Zach Edey listed as the center, the starting center for them. But this last season, he played mostly power forward. And, you know, he's just that defensive anchor. This next season for them, the roster should be a lot better because they are all healthy. Desmond Bane being healthy, Josh should be back. And then you have Marcus Smart there, which was a defensive player of the year. Jaren Jackson Jr. being a defensive player of the year. They've got the pieces there to put something together. Jaren just needs to, he's fallen on this list a little bit because of the foul trouble. That is his biggest thing that he needs to work on. At number 6 is the guy that just got the massive contract, and that is Lauri Markkanen. I want to see a couple more seasons, like at least one more season out of him of the all-star caliber player that we have seen last season, because of course there was the shaky start with Chicago, didn't really work out as what we expected. This kind of player that we've seen with Utah is exactly what we expected coming out of college. He's the unicorn-esque kind of player, averaging 23, 8, and 2, but the most important thing being 40% from 3 as a 7-footer is insane. You know, I'd like to see him in a winning organization, a winning area where, like, not Utah, that's going to be at the bottom of the pack this next year, looking for, you know, Cooper Flagg in the draft or someone like that. But, you know, Lauri with the trade mock-ups of him going to the Warriors or him going to Sacramento or him going to San Antonio, those would have been interesting situations because they have cornerstone solid pieces. They're looking to win now. They're just looking for one more piece, i.e. Sacramento is looking for, hopefully it's DeMar DeRozan for them. That's what they're hoping, but realistically it's probably not. Hopefully Golden State gets another jump out of Kuminga and Pods. Realistically, we don't know. And then San Antonio, they brought in Chris Paul. They obviously have like Keldon Johnson, Devin Vassell, Harrison Barnes over there now, and Victor Wembanyama. And you put another unicorn around another unicorn, like you could be creating something special there. So next up is a guy that gets a lot of criticism in the NBA, and that's just because he's a little bit of a foul baiter, complains a lot to the refs. I think you guys know what I'm talking about. It is Karl-Anthony Towns. I think the pressure on him has been relieved quite a bit since acquiring Rudy Gobert and getting Anthony Edwards and him becoming the, you know, as I put it, one of the best shooting guards in the NBA. You know, Cat is still good, averaging 21, 8, and 3. He can stretch the floor. A lot of these power forwards can, of course, but Cat is really good on the offensive end. It's that defensive end, and same thing with that I said about Jaren Jackson Jr. I'm saying about Cat. We got to get less fouls. Like, he gives up some easy fouls, like just blatant, like reaching over people's backs and stuff like that. And it's just like, bro, like just move your feet on the defensive end, and then when you're rebounding, just box out, bro. Like it. And then the complaining, they end up with 4-on-5 on defense a lot of times because he's complaining to the ref. So that is why he's only at the 5 spot for me. Now, of course, some people are going to have this list completely flipped where they have, like Lauri Markkanen way higher or maybe they're huge Jaren Jackson Jr. fans, and Cat maybe a lot lower. Now, Cat provides a lot for the success of the Timberwolves as well. So you have to account for that. In Lauri, for example, is on a bad team. Jaren Jackson Jr. did not, when healthy in this last season, the Grizzlies couldn't put anything together. I understand they had injury concerns, so I'll nix that. Randall was injured. Zion, they got bounced in the first round. Evan Mobley, they made it past the Magic, barely, but still, he wasn't the number one factor in contributing to that, and I still want to see more out of him. But so that's why I got Cat above the rest of these guys. At number 4, it is a guy who did switch teams last year, midway through the year. It is Pascal Siakam. Siakam averaging 21, 7, and 3 this last season. Just really, I think, has found home. In what I mean by that is he has found a place that fits his offensive game perfectly to a T. In just half a season, him and Halliburton developed this chemistry of they are a run and gun offense, and he is proving that he fits really well and deserves a big contract. So I expect the Pacers to be better this next season, and a lot of that because of Siakam and the chemistry that they're developing. We saw when the Raptors, when they went on their championship run and they allowed Siakam to run a push the ball, push the pace a lot more, they were very successful in that. And that's exactly what the Pacers are doing, and they made the Eastern Conference Finals. So yes, I do think that Siakam, although not top 3, he's right there. And speaking of top 3, this one might be the most controversial pick I have, and it is Paolo Banchero at 3. I just love his game. He, of course, needs shooters around him, but it really feels like a lot of the times on the court, it's only him doing anything. Yes, of course, they have Franz Wagner and Wendell Carter that, play really well, but Paolo runs everything. And even though teams are packing the paint, the Cavs packed the paint with Evan Mobley and Jared Allen, and Paolo still was finding a way to score. His three-point shot is improving each and every year, and, although they had an early playoff exit, this next season should be better. So, yes, I really love Banchero's game a lot, and he is developing quite nicely, and he's probably the quietest and least amount of pressured number 1 overall pick we've ever seen. But it's working out in his favor because he could just be quiet and just dominate kind of thing. Like, he is a fantastic power forward in today's league. And if it wasn't for 2 other players being ahead of him, he would be at the top of this list, of course. At number 2, now he's listed as a power forward on the depth chart. That's why I have him here, and I did not have him in the small forward video. It is Jason Tatum. Tatum, although didn't have the greatest finals that we've seen out of a player. What I will say, in LeBron's first 2 years in the finals, he also had 2 stinkers. He did not have 2 good series. Jason Tatum, in his first 2 final series, does not have a great reputation so far. Now, if he gets a third and has another poor performance, that's when a conversation needs to start being had. But when he's not shooting the ball well or playing necessarily the greatest, he's doing other things on the court, and that is why he's number 2. He can take over a game for sure, but the fact that he can play make, the fact that he defends at a high level, he is towards the top of this list. And other than the finals, he had a good season overall. He didn't have the best power forward season, and that's because this guy, we all know who it is. It is Giannis at number 1. Just extremely dominant, of course, averaging 30, 11, and 6. They were the 3rd seed this year with him being the number 1 option, and when he was injured, they couldn't do anything. So it's just Giannis is one of the best players on the planet. It's that simple. You can't really say too much about his game. His three-point shot is improving. Yeah, of course, that's the weakest part of his offensive game, but it's Giannis. He's a 7-footer that dribbles once and he's already down the court kind of thing. When he's got a full head of steam ahead of him, it's impossible to stop him. So All right, guys, that has been my list of the top 10 power forwards that are listed on ESPN's depth charts for the rosters. So if you think like Kevin Durant should be there, I put him at the small forward video. But if you disagree with anyone on this list, maybe you think like Randall should be higher than he is or Lauri Markkanen should be lower than he is, let me know in the comments down below. Let's have a discussion. So with that being said, guys, this has been another Heart Over Height episode, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.